the offensive coordinator search. And it was music to my ears to hear that the Steelers are finally going to hire from outside the organization. Again, we could take this in a number of directions. Who should the Steelers target? Why should they target that person? In an ideal world, if we gave you the keys to the Cadillac, who are you calling up on the phone first to try to become the Steelers' new OC?
Well, we know that they're calling Zac Robinson, the passing coordinator for the Rams. That's an interesting interview there. I think that I need to know a few things first. One, Eric Bieniemy is someone that I am trying to talk to. I know he's still under contract with the Commanders, but with the changes that they're going to be going through there, maybe he wants out, or there could be something orchestrated to bring him over. I think the Steelers really need an offensive coordinator who knows how to run a room, knows how to talk to a quarterback, and can get everyone pointed in the right direction, because that was Matt Canada's biggest weakness. Everyone want to talk about play calls and this, that, and the third. But to me, the biggest thing was week to week, nobody was sure what the goal, why the plan was, what it was to get to the goal to score a touchdown. Like there was not a full 100% belief in hey, I know that this is our play, but I don't understand how to go through my progressions if I'm Kenny Pickett, or the offensive line not being sure when to get to the second level, when to be aggressive, those type of things. And you need someone to be pointed in doing that. And you want an experienced person who's been an OC, not just a position coach who you think can emerge into a play caller, unless you think that's the move you want to make. I think the Steelers would behoove themselves to get an experienced offensive coordinator and then try to find one of those other guys who want to be an offensive assistant, who wants to be a quarterback coach or a passing game coordinator, who they can bring in and say, hey, you are going to be responsible for working closely with Kenny Pickett and this receiving crew and making sure that they're firing on all cylinders and contributing to the overall game plan that's organized by Bienemy, Kellen Moore, whoever is the experienced offensive coordinator that they've brought in. That, I think, would be the ideal situation. But if the Steelers want to get young and innovative and bring in one Robinson, he's a McVayite. He's from that coaching tree. You want to dip into that pool of people. I'm not against that at all. I think that would be a fine move. But I feel like just for the way that they've gone things, you don't want as much of an experiment at the OC position. You want someone who's has a proven track record of bringing success.
Yeah, let me talk about Bienemy, and then I'll get to Robinson really quickly. Let me start with Bienemy, and if you have any thoughts, hop in, Chris.
Sure.
He eventually will become a head coach. It's honestly, I'm tired of talking about the storyline of, he interviewed this, then he should have a head coaching job and all of that. Washington is essentially a blank canvas with new ownership. I know Bob Myers is coming over from the Golden State Warriors. I don't know if they'll keep Eric Bieniemy there with Ron Rivera fired, the head coach. Bienemy, though, 37 pass attempts. He ran the ball fewest of any team in the league, and that's not really the Steelers' MO with Najee and Jalen Warren with the ground game and establishing that, setting up play action. So that to me would need to be, if you bring in Eric Bieniemy and just what his philosophy has been with the points that they put up in Kansas City and then what he did with Sam Howell this past season in Washington, it would just be a contrast from what the Steelers have done. So that's where I am at with Bienemy. With Robinson, the thing, and they say, well, Canada had facets of, a McVay or a Shanahan offense with what, in my opinion, was wasted motion. And here's what I mean by this. And this was a change in a difference that I noticed when Eddie Faulkner and Mike Sullivan took over as play caller and interim OC, respectively. Was the motion wasn't always wasted motion, because under Canada's offense, the moment a motion man went by the quarterback and wasn't getting it on an end round, number one, the ball's not going to that player. Number two, the ball's probably going in the opposite direction. And if we can pick this up watching the games each week, Chris, I can't even imagine what it's like for opposing defenses that have been able to scout the Steelers a full week in advance. So people will be like, well, Canada had elements of Shanahan and McVay. And it's just like, no, not really, sort of, but not really. And that's why he lost his job mid-season, because point blank period, they weren't getting it done. First game, they get a 400-yard game. It wasn't perfect with the interims, but I do think it was better than what we saw with Matt Canada. I'd love to know your thoughts about my thoughts. Hop in here.
No, listen, Matt Canada, like he deserved to be fired for what was going on there. I thought some of the wasted motion was also part of the process of not choosing the right receivers to throw to with the quarterbacks. And there were times where the guy who was in motion was the guy that was open, and why didn't you throw to him? And like there was plenty of times where it was like, how, if you probably remember the second Browns game, they're in the red zone, and Kenny Pickett drops back. Deontay Johnson runs the slant, and no one runs with him. Like, it was the perfectly called play, wide open, hit him 5 yards in front of you, literally in the middle part of the field. He walks into the end zone. They score a touchdown, probably win the game, which puts an entire different spin on the season. Canada also probably doesn't get fired, which means who knows what the heck happens after that, But like that moment right there, I was just like, he's completely lost. Kenny Pickett is, and that's where I point to the biggest weakness of Canada was coming into the week. Hey guys, this is what the Browns do. This is how we're going to attack them. We're going through all these these are our calls, these are our switches, these are our hots. Let's work on them this week. Let's go. And that's what Eddie Faulkner was able to get done, was able to say, hey, this is the plan this week. There's no questions about it. Attack. And that gave the Steelers their surge with Mason Rudolph. And Matt Canada, the things that I've come to understand about his past in college, look, he had schematics that made total sense and were even somewhat innovative. There's someone pointed out there was a week where both Sam Laporta and George Kittle caught wheel route touchdown passes down the sideline that were really well drawn up and got them wide open. And someone said, man, Matt Canada would never call that play. And then the person who posted it, I said, actually, they kind of got it from him because the Steelers used this against the Bengals last year. And we hadn't really seen this, the way this one was used like that too often. So again, Matt Canada had some schematic ideas, but I don't think I think his biggest problem was trying to get everyone on the same page. And that's the point of an offensive coordinator, is to coordinate, to get people on the same. It's not just calling the plays. It's not just, that's why like Eric Bieniemy, when he was with the Chiefs and people were like, well, Andy Reid calls the plays. Yeah, but Eric Bieniemy's setting up the room. And that's where I think there could be an asset there. And that's what I think that's the biggest thing the Steelers need right now, is a person who will control that room and kind of be the person that Tomlin doesn't have to worry about, who's in charge with the offense. Like Todd Haley was. Like that's the fact of the matter is their last two hires were from within the organization. But let's be real. Randy Fichtner was a Ben Roethlisberger decision that was he wanted his guy. Why would you not listen to Ben Roethlisberger there? And Matt Canada, I believe, was because they was in a position where what offensive coordinator wanted to coach old man Ben Roethlisberger for one last year and potentially, be on the outs because Tomlin's contract situation wasn't totally solidified. So I think that they were in a bit of a hole, and they said, well, let's give this guy a shot. We hired and brought him in, and then it just failed miserably. But I think this is like, okay, let's get back to getting someone in here. It's not an experiment, and they're getting a clean slate. They know they got some offensive line talent. They got some running backs. They got some playmakers. That your job, if you want to be a big head coach, turn Kenny Pickett into a respectable NFL quarterback, or whoever the Steelers quarterback is next year, and make this offense go from ranked 28th to like top 15. Do that, and I think that their offensive coordinators would be interested in that job.
Absolutely. And this is assuming they extend Tomlin's contract, which by all reports and indications, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
You mentioned Bienemy too, and this is not hindsight 2020, but after the Super Bowl win against the Eagles last year, go back and look at reports of motion that the Chiefs utilized to recognize coverage discrepancies against the Eagles. Who was it? No, it wasn't Mahomes. It wasn't it was Eric Bieniemy who noticed those things, and they scored 2 touchdowns. If you go back and watch the tape from that game, that was Eric Bieniemy. And it's no secret that the Chiefs offense struggled, at least during the regular season. We'll see how they fare in the AFC Championship game if they advance on to the Super Bowl. But the way that the Chiefs are winning games this year, much different than in seasons past, Chris. Much different. Important. And that's it. It's the defense, but it's also a lot of it's the absence of Eric Bieniemy at the offensive coordinator position for the Kansas City Chiefs.
I agree. And that was one thing that I think Eric Bieniemy, even though the offense at Washington didn't like take off or anything, I think this was a bit of a vindication for him, because people realize, oh, it was a little bit better. Now, granted, it also helps when you have, a little a few better weapons than, Justin Watkins and guys that they have behind Travis Kelce. But certainly I think Eric Bieniemy we can kind of see that guy is that guy's kind of earned his respect. And I think that someone else is going to give him a shot. If the Steelers give him a shot, I think it would be warranted, to say the least.
Any other names Steelers fans should keep an eye on when it comes to the search for a new OC?
So one guy that I popped that I've continued to mention is Kellen Moore. He's the Chargers offensive coordinator. He was most recently with the Cowboys before then under McCarthy, and about 3 of those 4 years he had a top 10 offense. And not that he's some super genius, but I think he's a guy he's worked with multiple veteran quarterbacks. He knows how to organize a room. He has inklings of modern offenses. That's what that can be part of something that you bring in, and it would be a different look. It'd be a younger coach. It could be a different kind of guy that leads that. I think that's another name that's there. Shane Waldron's now heading to the Bears, so he's off the market supposedly. But I think that there's some options there. Again, Klint Kubiak's an obvious one that everyone's going to talk about, and I'm not against the Klint Kubiak. Comes from a good system, is doing really good things with Kyle Shanahan. Darrell Bevell would be another one to bring in there. Anthony Lynn, Mike McCoy, guys like that. They're around, but the question will be when they bring them in, what is the look of these guys? And the Steelers also have to be prepared for, you bring one of these guys in, you also need to bring in potentially the next guy, because this offensive staff needs to evolve in the way that it thinks. And the Steelers have always believed in too many cooks in the kitchen spoils the soup, right? And they've wanted to keep their staff smaller because, you're able to get more done in a room with less people, so to say. But Steelers are in a position where I think that model isn't helping them right now. They need more eyes, more ears, more brains to put together the plans and communications and things that they need to get this offense humming. That means not just an offensive coordinator. I think they might need a new quarterback coach. I think they keep Eddie Faulkner. But if they get an offensive line coach, what about a run game coordinator? Even if they get a receiver and a quarterbacks coach, get a pass game coordinator, or make sure that whoever you get to fill either of those positions is your pass game coordinator. And get a person in there who's young and innovative with your offensive coordinator, so that if things are popping off and your OC after 2 years, let's say Kenny Pickett turns into a Pro Bowl. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but let's say your offensive coordinator is that successful. They're going to get a head coaching job. That's just the way of the NFL. You need to be prepared to keep that ship afloat and have someone else in there that you have confidence in to rise up the ranks. So it won't just be the OC hire. It'll be who that OC is bringing in with them that could be a quick riser for the Steelers if the offense were to take off.
Chris, I want to live in that world. And the reason I say that is, initially it's well, if they hire a young hotshot coordinator and he gets hired away, let's have that. That is a good problem to have.
Absolutely.
Good problem to have.